Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings Here. From here to where you are. Anyway, I don't know. Some kind of attempt at a conversation. Yeah, I do all the talking, it seems. All the reasonable talking. I do get back some crap, and so I'll do some of that. Eventually. But first, I wanted to, just because it sort of relates to what was on my mind, what the fuck moments of the week for me personally, which have something to do with these videos, I suppose they should. What's been on my mind is, the fact that you're living, this emotional life, this personal life, and at the same time carrying around this notion of reality, this belief, understanding of what you're doing. And it's really hard to make the two of them mix, in the sense that it doesn't, there's plenty of advice, your brain can give you about, don't bother taking the shortcut because you might break your leg. So it can give you lots of advice about, expediency and efficiency, and you have to do something, it has to get done, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do it. So you have to kind of schedule a time to do it and kind of create some sort of fake mechanism to force you to do it, because you're not going to do it just out of your own volition. You're not just going to say, oh, I feel like doing it. That's not going to happen. So you have to, so your brain can be helpful in terms of letting you know that these certain little tricks might help you, get to an end result that you'll find more satisfactory than failure, or breaking your leg. But other than that, it just doesn't, it's, you can't feel, what your brain can tell you. Your brain can tell you there's no point in feeling sad. Well, yeah, okay, so there's no point in it. Does that make me unsad? What do I do to, get rid of it? Just think of pink balloons? Yeah, well, that doesn't really work. And then the same, as soon as my brain thinks of pink balloons, and it says, okay, I should go chase a pink balloon, then my brain also tells me, that's what retards do. And so I'm like, well, then why would I do that, right? You're telling me first, you're telling me to go chase a pink balloon, and then you're saying you're a retard if you're chasing a pink balloon. It's like saying, a more sophisticated way to say it would be, pretty woman walks down the street, and, your impulse is, well, I'll go follow. But then your brain says, succubus, high maintenance, you'll never figure out how to make it work. So let it go, because it ain't going to happen. That kind of thing. It's probably already attached. Some other thing, some other bad news. So it tells you, forget it, don't bother. So, so this song sort of relates to that, because it's saying, try to remember, your better life, you're being young and strong and all of that crap, while you're falling apart. And try to live in that moment somehow, chase that dream, whatever, just no practical way to do it. And it just doesn't do you much good to lament all that you've lost, because you have to deal with the fact that I live now in this world, and it doesn't have any of the components of that old world. I don't have any of the same, there's not none of the same stuff in it. It's not made of the same stuff. So what's the point of remembering when you could fly, when your wings are broken, Anyway, so it's a nice sentiment, blah, blah, blah. It's a nice tune, that's for sure. Well, anyway, so, oh, I forgot that, I have to actually show you what I'm talking about. Oh, that would make sense. So, Mr. Natural. Okay, it's only got 13 views, and I thought that was just hideous. But that's the new internet, right? It's pretty hard to get anybody's attention. Pretty hard to get anybody to provoke any interest in human beings. They're all interested in such crap. They're all such despicable monsters. Oh, it's just, ew. They're all very retarded, frankly. The new breed of human. Oof. But anyway, so, you know, it's Mr. Natural. This is old internet, blah, 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 you know, vintage, vintage internet, vintage YouTube kind of stuff. Anyway, so I just thought it's appropriate for a number of reasons. It's Mr. Natural makes a video. He doesn't make too many. Maybe he's going to make more videos, blah, 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 you know. So just something to reference. Leave a link below and such. And yeah, so for what it's worth, it just happened to be coincidental to what I was emotionally experiencing this week, which was moments of lament and depression and feeling, finding it just difficult to get through the week. And I get this criticism from people, so it's made me think of that also, that, some people complain that I've ruined their life, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry, but, it's only so much what do you want me to do? Not talk about the truth, or, not explain anything that I've, you gain some experience, and, oh, so if I told somebody that, yes, it all never works out, and you always get divorced, and this always crashes, and that always ruins, and you'll always fail, I'm somehow guilty. No, it's, it's just good to know that, I mean, all we can do here is play the game, and if you're playing it like a retard, you can't blame somebody for the fact that like I said, I don't shove this down your throat, so you have some indication that you can handle the danger, so it's on you, sort of, it's not on me. And I'm certainly applauding the fact that you were curious enough to listen. But, the facts of life just aren't my fault. And the fact is I have to endure the same thing. The fact is I'm not, and frankly I would argue that I've had to endure it a lot longer than you, in the sense that, I've been stuck with this understanding, almost from birth. So that's part of, what I'll explain. But I've explained it before, that it already had occurred to me that I might be participating in a game I can't win, and that all I could do is minimize my losses. It seems that's what I understood, even though I couldn't have said it in those words at the time. That's exactly what I had figured out, because that's exactly what my brain was in the process of doing, was defining the territory, and recognizing that I'm awful lucky that other guy got blown up today. And thank you to that one over there for, having his arm ripped off, because then I didn't have to do that. I mean, all the crap that was happening, I was already appreciating the fact that I was pretty lucky not to be the person doing that today. And that's, you're as soon as you do that, you're already on the road, frankly, to recognizing that this is a game you cannot possibly win, and all you can do is minimize how much you're an asshole and how much you personally lose. And that's just all you can do, is try to keep your asshole, what they call it, footprint, your asshole footprint, as low as possible. Try to not stink up the joint, make it any stinkier. Okay, I mean, it's already a rotting corpse, and it just doesn't need your farts on top of it. That's not going to help any. That kind of thing. Alright, so, having done that, I guess we'll move on to another piece of crap, that just adds to the story. Sorry, I didn't imply that Mr. Natural is not a piece of crap. I just mean it's all crap fodder. Everything is just connected to this thing, is connected to that thing, connected to that thing, and all these events and all these activities we're built into is all made out of crap, in the sense that the whole cultural evolution is crap. The whole fact that we have to have the conversations crap. Oh, the whole thing is just crappy, because it wasn't created to be smart. It wasn't given, here's knowledge, And, you know, in a full package. Here's the instructions. You know, we have to write them as the process is going on, so they're really crappy instructions because they have a lot of stuff crossed out and little notes on the side, and it's a mess. And the thing I'm going to link to is just another example of the mess. You know, the stuff you have to, oh fuck, edit that because that's just said so poorly. It's just such a pile of mush and crap. Anyway, yeah, so I'll be back in shortly. Alright, I should be back. So this is some link anonymously sent to me by email, like it's supposed to provoke something. I don't know what the purpose was. It's not, you know, the person didn't provide anything like, oh, isn't this a pile of shit? Or anything like that. So this is one of those whatever, blah 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 blah. You know, some guru guy, you know, supposed to be saying things that are profound. And this is, of course, one of the ones that come out of the whole LSD culture. You know, like somehow the magic mushrooms are the secret of enlightenment. You know, the overt poison, okay, that you inject into yourself to poison your brain somehow makes you smarter. You know, gives you greater knowledge. Yeah, I don't think so. But anyway, so I'll play some of this babbly, wimpy bullshit. But it just relates, again, to the same dilemma of, you know, what's the value of knowledge when you have to live a life? You know, what's the value? And again, I'm just going to argue. Obviously, you can't, nobody's going to say, you know, you'd be better off eliminating all your life experience and all the cautionary inhibitions that it creates. No one would argue that it's good to be drunk all the time, you know, because drunks aren't any fun. They're not any real use. Come on, let's get real. They cause more trouble than they ever entertain. They're certainly not functional. They don't do a whole bunch of work. They don't, you know, it's not an enhancer of a human being in any real way. You wouldn't want one living next door, all of that kind of crap. So let's not have this stupid illusion, you know, that we're better off being stupid or unaware. It's just how do you carry awareness and still enjoy your cupcake, you know, to be able to do enough in your life that's satisfying and gratifying, even though you know you're in the middle of a war, so to speak. I mean, it's that kind of thing, really. It's really just saying, what's the psychological strategy for being able to endure you know, life as a victim of wartime? You know, how do you, you know, how do you face it day to day? And I really don't have an answer. So, I mean, I'm being sort of lame, in the sense that, yes, it was a problem I've had this week, and I didn't come up with a great solution. I didn't find any trick that just makes it all go away, beyond just trying to reboot, you know, just trying to, ooh, you know, just feel yourself sinking in it. You know, the idea isn't, no, don't move, just sink. No, don't just sink in it. Okay, you really do have to fight it, you know, before it really gets a hold of you. If you move fast right at the beginning, you can escape that kind of quicksand. But if you don't react and you just allow yourself to slide into that melancholy pit, it's just harder to get out. But that's about it. I mean, there's not a whole lot of great advice. So anyway, let's just play some of this mush.
What I understand is that to experience the horror of it, we all...
Okay, so to experience the horror, so I guess he's just talking about the fact that your life is messy and sloppy, and you know, it has all of these unacceptable elements, and they truly are unacceptable. It's just that we can't do anything with our statement of unacceptability. It's not very useful. I it's unacceptable. You know, I mean, what do you do? I saw somebody carrying a flag the other day walking to tennis courts with a purple flag, and I was like, what the fuck? I don't know what was written on the other side. Maybe there was something. But it was a flag. I mean, a big flag, you know, with two kids, and it's just, what the fuck are you saying? Anyway, you know, just too weird. I mean, it's just gotten really just too... That's part of why I guess I had a bit of a problem. It's just that this world I'm living in now is so alien to me. There's just not a single thing about it that, you know, nobody's talking English. I mean, everybody's living these bizarre... I mean, all this diversity stuff. Again, I knew it was garbage before I got here. It's just, when you're living right in the middle of it, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it's like having all these different kind of animals in the same zoo cage or something. It just doesn't make any sense. You know, it's really just too silly. Where was I? Doesn't really matter. Horror. Okay, so we're sitting here in the middle of a situation that's just unacceptably broken. You know, a war. And what do we do about it?
All can tune in on the level at which there is the horror. To experience the horror doesn't necessarily help.
Yeah, so what? You know, I mean, no one would think that to experience it helps. Okay, but we also know that the only way you ever fix a problem is it has to be a problem, right? I mean, the problems we have now, the very fact that we have them is because people don't feel them. They don't feel their kids' pain, you know, when they steal their money. You know, because their kids won't feel it until later, after they're dead, when they have to pay the bills. So, you know, there's lots of things we're doing that are horrible. Okay, so lots of the horror, I don't personally have to deal with it, and so it's you know, beyond just recognizing its existence, which is, you know, not that difficult. But that's where this gets a little tricky, because I'll sort of relate to when I was a kid and how I was acknowledging the fact that this doesn't look like a profitable net product. The game doesn't look like there's any really brilliant strategies here overall. I mean, too many of the animals are killed and too many are harmed to be worth it, kind of perception. But was I perceiving it because I had any true empathy for all of those victims, or was my empathy based on my recognition, as I kind of pointed out before, how lucky I am not to be them? And so how much of it was a selfish, you know, kind of empathy, where it only means something when I could convert it into, how does this affect me? And because I already kind of knew, there wasn't this substantial difference. You know, you just arrived here as a tree, and which tree you arrived at, or which vessel you were in, you know, was random. It wasn't like you were special and you got to be a special person. No, you realized, you know, yeah, whether you live here or you live there, or whether you live where you're born, and all this stuff doesn't matter. So I'm just saying those little realizations made it possible for me to realize I didn't have immunity for any good reason. It was just lucky. You know, there wasn't good reasons. I mean, obviously I had to have parents and all this kind of stuff that made all this stuff possible, but I'm just saying, and ancestors that survived the plague and all those rules. But I mean, none of it made me special. You know, none of it, I didn't earn any of it, I guess I could say. So, but I was still, like, you know, how much of my contemplation was out of the fact that I recognized the jeopardy, okay, I guess I was in. So I made it personal to me by recognizing, what if it was me? What if it was me, that guy with only one leg? Or what if it was me? And as soon as you do that, now, is it empathy? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's not, you're not being very generous. You know, it's not a generous thing you're doing. It's a selfish thing. So I have to admit, maybe it was just selfish. in the sense that I didn't like the Jeopardy. I wouldn't want to be them, all of that kind of stuff. So, but that, I don't know whether that makes any difference, whether, what the motivation is, in terms of making these distinctions between the ideal of being unselfish versus the pragmatic fact that you should be selfishly motivated to play a good game, right? I mean, it should be in your self-interest not to want to win a race by cheating. That should almost be your self-interest, not your generous interest. You're not doing it because you're cheating someone else, that you already know that's cheating yourself, that someone else is just as good as you and all that other crap. So why are we bothering having this discussion about I'm selfishly trying to protect you from harm? When, what's the difference if I'm trying to protect me from harm? I'm already conceding the point that the value of the brain, the sentient brain, is the same. So why, why is it, what? It shouldn't even be an important distinction. So people will call me a megalomaniac or some kind of horrible person and all this crap, and they could imply that's because I'm some selfish draconian overlord that wishes to impose. What do I wish to impose? Something in my own self-interest, but not my self-interest in any kind of just me, and it doesn't include any of you. No, the whole point is it includes all of you. And that's the only way it can work anyway, is it has to include all of us. All of us have to have an interest in not being tortured for us not to be tortured. I mean, as long as you keep investing in the interest to allow the torture risk to exist, then yes, we will be tortured. And I'm just logically saying that's not a very smart thing to do. So that makes me Hitler. Okay, whatever. That seems really, really vacuous logic to me. But whatever. Separate subject.
The interesting question is, what can I do as a human being to increase the consciousness, identity with love, identity with beauty, identity with truth?
So it has some weird defects of the tape, although it's one of these, microphone thingies, and you can almost hear every sound in his lungs or something. Anyway, it's just kind of ironic that it has static in it. But I mean, just too silly. I mean, love words and all this crap. I mean, what is love? What is any of that crap besides nature saying corpses smell bad, stay away? And then nature saying something else doesn't. I mean, you're just being controlled by some natural impulse. So this whole idea of what beauty is and what love is dependent on, these biological mechanisms that are compelling you, to be motivated. There's nothing intelligent in it. But anyway. No, it's just this the whole vocabulary of these people. I just don't even know. It's so hard to relate to why this works on any brain at all. This mushy. It's such baby talk. Oh.
For all of my fellow men, for all of us.
La, 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 la. Yeah. So the principle is for all of us. For what reason? Because you perceive it to be an absolute disaster. Okay, if you the fate that all of us. I mean, you're either in the lifeboat surviving in some sort of rational way, or you're drowning, getting eaten by sharks. I mean, the stakes are kind of high, and there's no point in playing a game, where. All right, so that was another argument I wanted to make in this video somewhere, so I'll make it here. Because there's this too. Just saying that the overall perception I'm arguing for over these last 15, 17 years is, yes, this negative utilitarianism, this kind of pessimistic view, of the function of the biological organism that is just consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, an addiction, and then cannibalism. what the hell? No, parasitism. There, that's how it fixed it. So it's crap. It is crap. There's no profit to be made. There's just minimizing the losses. So try to make it happen, and with as little torture as an ingredient. But there's no point. So clearly, clinging to it, just out of belligerence is silly. But anyway, so there's these two sides. These, whatever you want, pro-lifers is what they really, realistically, what they are, and pro not life. Don't do it. Don't make it. No, it's not pro-death. It's not pro-kill them all. It's pro don't make more victims to be forced to play a game that only something really stupid can play with any kind of passion. Anything with a little bit of brains is going to realize there's a lot of danger in everything I touch here. Everything I touch. And certainly making a new human being, wow, very dangerous. All kinds of horrible outcomes. So it's the difference between the two philosophies. And you're saying, okay, if I'm wrong, let's say I'm wrong, and life really is purposeful and functional to some extent. Who knows what it would possibly be, but let's just say I'm wrong. All right, and I'm proposing that we take this thing that really is making a profit and I deny it its profitability. Okay, whatever the amount of profit it's making, right? So I would argue it's a very minimal profit. If it's making a profit, it's very minimal, because we all could agree, I think, wars are really expensive. Disease, cancer, death, all this stuff is really expensive, so we're paying a very high price for these little glory moments that we have doing our love thing. Very, very expensive. So it can't be much of a profit. So if I'm wrong, then we gave away that little bit of profit. This little tiny profit. Okay, we gave it away. And the crisis is just the same as what's happening on Mars right now. So the tragedy that I'm going to cause is just as dramatic, okay, if I'm completely wrong, and it's a plus instead of a minus, then it's no bigger a tragedy than already happened on Mars, and already happened on the Moon, and already happened on Saturn, and already happened on Uranus, and already happened on Neptune, and already happened, Mercury. It already happened on the Sun. It already happened on every object in the universe that you could conceivably form a living thing on and force it to chase a pretty woman down the street. All right, so every single planet where you could construct some sort of monster, that chases things, okay, to eat them or to fuck them, there, okay, the same tragedy has already taken place. And let's just calculate how many tears have been shed, how many moments of life, right, where the people on the other side of this argument, how many seconds of their existence have they endured the horror of contemplating the horror of Mars, and the horror of Saturn, and the horror of Uranus, and the horror of all the moons of Saturn. Horror, horror, horror. On all these planets, the horror, because there aren't little squiggly bits, eating each other and fucking each other, right? So that's their argument, right? So obviously the argument is they haven't spent any time contemplating that horror. It really can't be much of a horror, right? So we know that if I'm wrong, we're giving away very little, right? Oh yes, turning Earth into Mars, very small loss, because obviously it really doesn't bother most people much that Mars doesn't have people on it. It really doesn't bother them much. So, so come on. The argument's already over on that side, right? Now let's do the opposing argument. What if you're wrong, pro-lifer? Okay, advocate for keeping the torture engine running, keep feeding the the grinder, keep forcing all these people to endure insane amounts of horror. I mean, just insane amounts of pain, anguish, mental torment. We could just take one little mental hospital somewhere on Earth. Let's go to Bosnia or something, find a mental hospital, and you account to me, explain to me what you're doing that's going to make all of that anguish and suffering and torment worth it. So if you're wrong, all right, what you did was torture trillions, okay? You know, trillions of sentient brains. You imposed useless, pointless, wasted torture on them because you're so invested in your little Oscar statue. You know, your little golden Oscar statue on a hill, you know, that you're chasing, you know, that you got a boner for. So, I mean, and then you'll call me the monster. You'll say, I'm the person with the corrupt values. Clearly, your arrogance and your obnoxiousness, that's another thing, you know, that people say I'm arrogant and I'm this and I'm that, all these things. Look how arrogant that argument is that they're so fucking sure. They haven't died yet, so, but they know it's worth it. It's part of the fun. You know, it's a minor toll you have to pay to get into Disneyland. You know, dying. Oh, it's just a little quarter you throw in the cup. You know, it doesn't amount to anything. They know it because they already did it. Oh, wait a minute. No, they didn't. And I'm sure that they've seen plenty of indication that that movie isn't a good movie. You know, the dying movie. I'm sure they've seen enough of it peripherally to know, oh, that's not going to be a big fun party, is it? No, that tax is going to be really, really heavy. It's not going to be a quarter. You know, it's going to be, you know, 90% of your income. Okay, it's going to be a monstrous tax. So what is this argument? It doesn't have any rational foundation. Who are these people to judge me as a monster when they are, if they are wrong, if they're arrogant little fairy tales, they're little mishy-mushy bullshit, it is exactly what it's easily seen as, mush. They're unarticulated, we can't know the truth. There could be a God. It's just that he spells his name O-D-G instead. Blah, 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 blah. You know, some sort of bullshit. You know, what are they holding out for? We know it's evolution. We know they're just feeding machines. What's the argument? There's no argument here. There's no defense of this crap. This literal crap. Anyway, all right. So back to the dilemma of, okay, you know it's crap. You know you're stuck in crap. How do you do something other than feel like crap? And he doesn't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I just don't. You know, I mean, all I can recognize is that there are distractions, you know. So the other day, yes, I was depressed, and then I had to cut the grass. And it helped. See, because while I'm cutting the grass, I'm thinking, oh, this damn string trimmer is a piece of shit. I'm occupied in a little world of little struggle. You know, one of the kittens was in the yard, and I didn't want to make noise, and I wanted to disturb the kitten. He was sleeping on a little brick, and you know, so I had a new little problem to deal with that kind of takes me away from the bigger problem. Oh fuck, I'm so fucking doomed. So, you know, but that's it. That's all that's all the medicine I can find is little things like that. Try to be distracted and try to measure whether you're really in a really bad condition, like you're physically sick versus not physically sick. And it's just you feel sick because, yeah, your thinking is making you feel sick. You know, those kind of, it's a little difficult to do, though. It's a little difficult to find how to trigger the cure. And a lot of it's not related in time, which is really irritating. Our biology, you know, it sends the messages, you know, you get bitten by the mosquito and it itches, you know, 10 days later. Some kind of crap like that. The system isn't very well connected. And so you end up feeling what you thought, you know, 5 hours ago. You think something 5 hours ago, and then you feel it, what you were thinking, you know, the negative part. That kind of crap happens, which is really annoying. But anyway, let's just play some more of this crap. This other form of the crap manifestation. The underlying crap mechanism.
Together, since we all got to make it
The crap-averse.
together, because we can't make it separately. Because
We can't make it separately. So, you know, again, this doesn't really make any sense, right? Because, you know, that only makes sense if you understand it in the bigger context of I can't stop my creation because I don't create me, right? I don't make my baby into me, and, you know, that's not how it happens. They make the decision to force me to play again. They're, you know, they have the control mechanism. Me controlling my reproduction and saying I'm not going to reproduce and cause life to exist, it doesn't solve the problem because they're going to do it. They're going to make it happen. So this idea that we're all in this together doesn't really work because, frankly, we're, you know, the only together part is their capacity to push me into traffic. You know, there's no together part in terms of recognizing that, well, anyway, some philosophy has to win or some philosophy has to lose. That's the real truth here. Both sides can't win. Only one side can win. The two are, you're actually having a war between something that is black and white, you know, or quicksand versus cupcake. It is that obvious. One side's fighting for quicksand, one side's fighting for cupcake or whatever. And they're just not compatible. You can't have the cupcake and sink in the quicksand. Okay, it doesn't work. The cupcake is ruined if you're sinking in quicksand. The whole experience fails, you know, if you're sinking in quicksand. Anyway, so only one side can win here. So in that sense, we're in this all together. But in no other sense is there any connection between one person's state and another person's. The states don't necessarily have any equity. So your slave will experience life and you will experience life as the master. And those two experiences won't bleed into each other in any real sense besides, oh, they have body odor, you know, or some kind of silly way. I mean, the only way the experience of the slaves can bleed into the slave owners if he has some perception of the pain he's imposing. But other than that, it can't bleed. It doesn't bleed.
living in a psychic space together.
Mm-hmm. Psychic space together, whatever that, you know, this whole bullshit. I mean, why do people, what are they believing in? What is this? We just renamed Jesus Psychic Space. It's fun. Psychic Space went to town. Psychic Space fed people with fishes. Psychic Space walked on water. Psychic Space said blah 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 blah. Psychic Space.
And when I look at that, I understand that all I can do as a separate entity
is shoot them all. No. Yes. Yeah, all you can do is fight in the war. I mean, all you can do is you got to carry the stupid flag. You have to sit there and fight it. You can't acquiesce and just say, well, I will evade thinking about it and find something else to do while the war goes on, right? I'm a great soldier. I'm sitting here. How do I deal with being a soldier in the war? Well, you don't deal with it very well by walking away from the war and saying, I'm just going to play in the sandbox over there with Susie. You know, I'll try to remember and follow a dream somewhere else. That isn't going to get the job done.
is to do whatever I do as consciously as I can. That's
whatever that mush means again. So again, consciously as I can. Now this might mean something. It says thoughtfully as I can. So I will try to find a strategy where I make an acceptable compromise between my need not to go insane, okay, not to be consumed by depression, and my responsibility to attempt to be a constructive player in the war against this horror. The horror that I can't totally ignore, you know. I just try not to, you know. Don't wallow in it. If you're, you know, smelling the corpse smell, don't go looking to investigate. Just say, okay, some people got shot. I don't need the details. I know I have to stay in the fight because there's danger here and there's things at risk and there's victims. I don't need to go, you know, look at the victim's face and, oh, yeah, you know, I'm better off, okay? I see that there's a lump on the road. Maybe I shouldn't go find out what cat has got run over today.
It's the rule of the game, see? Because the sitting around being horrified doesn't, all that does is I'm lost in the dance of the...
Yeah, it's the dance, he calls it. So dancing in the horror. You know, it's just, these are horrible metaphors. This is horrible rhetoric. But yes, it's true. If you just get lost in the fact that your body reacts viscerally, and if you allow it to constantly do that, you allow yourself not, you don't use mental images to keep yourself afloat. And that's all you got. All you have is your intellect, your brain, your thoughts to say, okay, I got to catch it before I let the boat sink. I can't get so caught up fishing that I let the leaky boat fill up with water. I have to bail now and then. I have to do these things, and I have to have a way of controlling, okay, whatever way I can, just to keep it floating, you know, so I can get something done, and all that. And you're just trying to find a good balance between being obsessed with the water coming in and trying to do your fishing or whatever. Yeah, not a great metaphor, but close enough.
Horror, and I'm by my thought forms, I'm adding energy into that particular thing.
So this is just absolute baby talk, right? I mean, no, you're wasting your time. So being consumed by your emotional reaction is a waste of time. You're not feeding the horror. That's, you know, you're not making the tortured, you're not sticking the knife deeper into the victims. You know, you're not making more victims. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're not feeding it in any way. So that's just silly. You're just not being a very good soldier. So if you're sitting in the trench just going, I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid. Yeah, obviously you're not very constructive. And you personally are now experiencing some of the horror. So that's not good either. But you're not making the horror more power. You're not making the Nazis more powerful. You're just not doing much to fight them.
Because in the game of polarities, the poles just keep getting more and more apart. The paranoia gets higher. And
so I don't even know what this has to do with anything, the paranoia. So that's almost a description that somehow we shouldn't be afraid of dying, and that we shouldn't be afraid of disability, and we shouldn't be afraid of reoccurrence, that we're just going to have to keep reliving crappy, stupid, moronic, retarded lives on this dopey, idiotic planet. You know, that all of that is paranoia, that somehow that's a figment of the truth. It's not the real truth. So it's clearly, he's sending two messages. He's saying the horror is real and you can't dismiss it because it's fake. So the horror isn't fake. It's a real horror. He's clearly saying there's elements of life that are definable as horror. And now he's calling it paranoia. Yeah. That's the duality, right? Illusion of duality. No, the duality is hypocrisy. You've just completely committed the first violation against reason and logic, and that is you have two conflicting definitions for the same word. That you can't do that.
The goal which every human being has, which is to be at home in love, where it feels...
Okay, so let's just be at home in love. I mean, again, wow, you're just saying, oh, brains that feed on this have to be so goddamn broken. I mean, how perversely bizarre and strange does your brain have to function where that kind of patronizing, putrid, mushy, babbly, ew, it's so fucking creepy. It's just, oh, I mean, it was just, I mean, just experiencing it as a connection, you know, as a flow of words. It's such a bad tune. It's so, you know, it's such a, you know, it's so, should just be cranking it in the nursery. I mean, this is music for babies to drool by, you know. Yeah.
Really good. Everybody gets further and further removed. And so you've got to look very carefully at whether your method of getting rid of the devil isn't making an alliance with the devil.
So again, it's a really poor metaphor, because that's really not what it is. What you have to see is that the war has to be fought, and you know, we're all, you know, and maybe that's something that has to be conceded. I mean, it's just that some people can't fight in a war. I mean, they just can't do it emotionally. It just isn't going to work. They're emotional. The fact is they're too emotionally vulnerable. They're too sensitive. And in some respects, I would argue that's sort of my life story, in the sense that you know, I've barely gotten through this thing. You know, I barely floated the boat. You know, it's always been 6 inches under the water, really. You know, but it's just enough buoyancy, you know, to keep me breathing. So I haven't been as good as I would have been if I was a more if I had a less sensitive, you know. But I am, you know, highly emotional, I guess. I don't know what I'm highly I'm very vulnerable to feelings and all of that crap. You know, I'm just saying that, you know, so yes, the shell-shocked guy, there's a point where you just say, okay, there's people who just aren't in an emotional condition to be fighters in the war, and so they shouldn't be, you know, because they're just not going to be able to do anything. I'm just arguing from the point of view that, well, you can always do something. And so even though, I mean, what I'm doing is such a tiny thing, you know, in a sense, compared to if I was a fully capable person. But that's the funny part, because if I would have been a fully capable person, I probably already would have been killed in the war. You know, if I was as functional, if I had reached whatever, you know, you could argue about potential and all this stuff. If I could have lived some sort of more normalish human emotional life, then I would have been able to take this argument. It's like somebody having broken legs in the war. You know, they still have a gun, they can still do stuff, but they can't maneuver, they can't get into the positions, they can't do a lot of things that would make them more effective as soldiers, you know. And, you know, so fighting the war from a wheelchair, the disadvantages are, yes, you can't do all that aggressive stuff, but the advantage is, okay, you're not in a position to be picked off either, because you're always in the foxhole, and, you know, or something like that. I'm just trying to argue that that's, so yeah, all of us have to assess what we're capable of doing, and you know, try to find you know, just try to find a way to make it work, and concede when it can't. So I mean, if you just can't even hold the gun, you can't even barely point it in the right direction, then yeah, get out of the war and go eat cupcakes and, I don't know, try to get lost in bullshit. But as long as you don't become something on the other side, you don't become a Nazi, you don't go crawl over to the Nazi side and say, will you give me a cup of soup? You know, you can't, you know, if you're going to be a traitor to the cause, you're going to be actually unproductive to the war, in the sense that you're going to give the other side, whatever, with the term they use, something in comfort, aid and comfort. Yeah, then you're going to be evil.
See, in a new and more subtle form. And in a way, the whole trip of polarities is not conscious enough. It doesn't mean, however, that you don't...
The whole trip of polarities, I mean, there's just no true goods and true bad. You can't separate any of this stuff. Everything you touch, you know, has sticky on it. You know, it's all in some way or other. Everything doesn't have all the screws in it. Everything about this is broken, and you know, and well, whatever. And so this idea that there's a pure good and a pure bad is just, you know, kind of silly.
Protest against impurities in a social system.
Ah, I love that talk, right? So this is Mr. Gentle and Nice. And the protest against impurities in the social system. Yeah. So I wonder if the Nazis had used that rhetoric. You know, it just sounds so funny. You know, when you put it that way, impurities. I mean, that whole impurity language. So here in the middle of all this goo talk, there's this little dangerous hunk of rhetoric, the impurities in the social context, or whatever you say, right? I mean, yeah, that's not very good language.
The question is how conscious you are when you protest. And it boils down to this. I mean, I can make the statement as bodily.
So again, this how conscious you are. We could just break this down into whether you're going to act as an emotional asshole, or whether you're going to do the best you can in terms of understanding what you're capable of doing. I'm a very good driver. I mean, don't exaggerate your functionality. Don't, you know, overestimate and all that kind of stuff, and just try to make a very good calculation about what kind of contribution you can make and what you can guarantee to the cause. You know, I mean, don't volunteer to pull on the rope if you don't have any hands.
Is this: when you can love the being you are protesting against as much as yourself, then you can protest.
Oh, well, whatever. So obviously this idea is just so, again, just such mush. It's just for people who want to pat themselves on the back and say, I'm a nice person, I love, love, love. Again, you're automatically, like I said, in some sense, okay, if you're in this conversation, you've already acknowledged, okay, that the other people are a condition and that you're a condition, and you're just arguing for saving them from the condition. And you're clearly stating that from a personal perspective, I mean, there's no logic I can apply to say, I'm obviously being sort of generous to say, if I wouldn't do it, why would I want to impose it on something? Why do I think because I imposed it on something else, the thing I don't want to do is somehow something I do want to do because they want to do it? Why would I think they could be of their right mind and want to do it? That can't possibly make any sense. So obviously I can't see it's being generous to allow them to be retarded. It's if you love people, you'll allow them to be fools. That wouldn't make any sense.
In a conscious way. Because what it's saying is, just like we were talking about making love, it's exactly the same situation. When we can...
If it's the same, then it would be completely retarded. So, I mean, just so, you know, it's just so silly. I mean, to even say the words make love, I mean, it's just, oh, come on. It's such a pile of psychological rudeness. I mean, the whole, you know, the physical act is crude. And, you know, the mindset, at least for, I'm going to argue, from the male perspective, is so, it's such a piece of gluttony. I mean, it's such a piece of, this is just about possession and power and I'm worth it. Look what I've earned. You know, some sort of, you know, it's all about just this ego crap. Just, it doesn't have any, you know, it doesn't have a single piece to it that really is a good piece of meat kind of thing. It's all wormy. You know, the whole thing is you know, covered in worms if you really look at it. You know, from a distance, it looks like fine. It's all no, it's all worms.
Meat, it's like two English tennis players. See, and they meet, and they're in the middle of the set point of the big match.
Oh, and they talk about, they put their pinkies out and say, good show, or some kind of bullshit. None of that shit even happens anymore, right? So all of that, England's a shithole too now. None of this honor crap. That's all kind of a mythology anyway. Yeah.
And it's a fierce match, fierce being an English word, and they look at each other and they say, jolly good day, isn't it? And at some moment, they've jumped levels, they've gone behind the way in which they're competitors.
Right, because they're not competing over life and death. They're not competing over... Well, you could even say, though, that some of that, you could even make the same story about two gladiators back in Rome, who would meet each other and, tip their swords at each other and do the little blah, 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 blah. Nothing personal. Yeah, nothing personal. One of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose, and we're going to lose it all, so to speak. That's just the game we're in, so blah, 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 blah. So it's just an acquiescence. So you're really not fighting then anymore. You're not in the war. That's walking away, I guess, would be the argument. If you don't understand that the contest and the fight, you're just acknowledging a kind of defeat. If you're going to play some jolly good horror, isn't it? No, it's not jolly good horror.
In order to meet at a place. It's like I was in Washington a number of years ago, and at that time I was kind of a heavy pusher in acid, and I was sort of connected with the underground in one way or another. And I met with one of the heads of the Food and Drug Administration. We just happened to meet in a hotel lobby. And I knew he had a big dossier on me, and he knew I had a big dossier on him, and we sat on this couch in the lobby, and we really liked each other, see? And we were in this... And at the end, he said...
yeah, that's like the beginning of the failure of government, I guess, right? Yes, the guy devoted to keeping people from being really, really stupid, is, oh yeah, well, some of you stupid loop-de-doos are... No. None of this had any credibility. This was just all people, it's like drunks getting other people to drink. I mean, they are literally pushers, okay? And they're pushers only because they've made such a mess out of themselves. They're saying, I gotta fuck everybody else up so I don't look so bad. I gotta get, it's like they gotta give somebody else the addiction. It's like I smoked for, almost my whole life. I never pushed it on anybody because I always knew this wasn't a great idea. I never gave anybody, hey, try a cigarette. Never happened. Okay, I mean, it never happened in my life where I ever gave a cigarette to anyone who doesn't already smoke. I mean, I never even thought about telling somebody, hey, try one of these. And that's these assholes are just, anyway, so fuck it. I mean, we know where the conversation's going. Nowhere useful when we're doing our little, the road to enlightenment. The road to enlightenment is just recognizing, this almost goes back to a modern mystic video, but I mean, science, okay? And you have to look at the science with, the scrutiny and all that kind of stuff, but some of it is just so real and so well demonstrated. And so, look, we evolved on this planet, and we evolved from monsters. And so is there any good reason to think we aren't still monsters? I mean, especially biologically. We're still emotional monsters. We're still driven by, these immediate and powerful sensations. And, even when we're really, really smart, it's hard to do anything to dampen the noise those sensations make. And they're monstrous. None of them are good motivations, and you know it. You know it. I know you know it. I know you know that if you look inside yourself, you're not going to see somebody who's really great guy. That's not what you're going to see, and you know it. the portrait inside that you could look at of your life and your motivations and what you've done, you're not going to be proud of it. You know it. Anyway, and there's just no way to defend, just keep injecting people into this moronic game to be, you're thrown into the world as a retard, and there's a bunch of retards trying to get you to smoke cigarettes, and then there's a bunch of retards trying to get you to do this and do that, all these negative influences of all these assholes. All this competition, be cool like me and drive too fast or do some other stupid moronic thing, and all this competition to see who can be the biggest time waster, who can, all this, pointless glory chasing, just horrible. And the only thing the only salvation is that you gain enough intelligence to recognize how trivial and silly all of that crap is, in the context of the sad truth that, somewhere around right now, somewhere on Earth, a cobra just bit a bunch of lion cubs, and they're gonna slowly die. Yeah. And that's okay with you. Let's keep doing that. It's big fun. I wish I could watch. Is that, get real. You're evading watching. You're running from it. Okay, yeah, so that's the what I wanted to relate was, I've said this before, but, when I was a kid, this was a real thing, that every night, when I went to go to sleep, my brain would regurgitate, these kind of thoughts. What's happening? How many people right now are having their arm pulled off by a wheat combine? How many people just got run over? How many people got cooked, lit on fire? And my brain would do that. This is what it did. It would acknowledge it, in a sense. That's sort of, I can't understand exactly what it was for, except acknowledging the existence of this as being the part of the reality I didn't see today. Yes, I saw a cute little silver bug. I saw, different things in my life today, but what didn't I see? What was outside beyond what I saw? There was a hurricane, or there was this, and it went the other way, and their tree fell on their house, and then a person got trapped underneath their kitchen table. I was just making this stuff up, but I was making it up relative to what you'd hear, on the radio, or, we didn't have much of a TV. Just the idea that you'd learn this is how the world works. This is what's happening in the world. And then even things I would see, then I'd say, how many times did that happen today? Where something got run over on the street. Just things like that. My brain would say, how many animals do you think got run over in the street today? On planet Earth. It would sit there and try to, how do you calculate that? I wouldn't try to do it mathematically. I just mean my brain was already in this process of just appreciating, in kind of a selfish way, okay, again, because it was more about me appreciating what I've missed. How many bullets I missed today. Where did the bullets that missed me go today? That's sort of what I was doing. So in a sense, it was very selfish, because I'm saying somehow having knowledge of the fact of where the bullets that missed me went would somehow make me more capable of missing bullets. That's sort of, I think, the selfish component. That the more I acknowledged all of that crap, the more I somehow would have power to control my immunity to the crap. Something like that, probably. Alright, anyway. So that's, I think, that's enough of a video. And such. Blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, wrap up in some form. Goodbye. Yeah, till next time. Yeah, it's just nothing. So anyway, so to extend, and I'm just saying, see, so I never had to be convinced. Nobody had to present me an argument of this is why you don't want to be a Nazi. I already knew what side to be on. I was already on the prevent the harm side, the, don't fail side, not the do whatever it takes to win side. I mean, I was already understanding failure was a lot more expensive than how much you won. I already knew gambling, what you can lose is too vital. Losing your legs to gain $1 million kind of thing. I mean, I already knew it doesn't really work. It's not a very good exchange, And I knew that I was in a casino that was really against me. Okay, that there was so much more danger than there was any hope of a bliss, whatever that would be, and that could ever even be sustainable. It's already, it was already a dark voyage. I mean, it's already. I'm just going to be tunneling, aren't I? I'm just, I'm really not going to be. This isn't going to be heaven. Yeah, this is Earth. Why am I doing this part? Why don't I just forget this part and just do the heaven part? That kind of. I was already in the psychology of saying, how did I get here? Because this doesn't seem like a sensible thing to be doing. Anyway. Till the next time and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, that's a good image to end on. Okay. So anyway, till the next time and such.